I have kind of like a two-part question on this. There's the whole governance piece, like your change management, change control. How does that work? And then as patches, the ops side patches vulnerabilities or deploys updates that change the way the system may work. So you get a new library that deprecates something or adds a new feature. How do you manage that within this process? Because those are outside the development chain, but they're impacting the development chain.
I don't know. It's really hard. We have lots of outages, and that happens all the time, right? There are outages. Somebody, our ops team pushed out a patch because we were upgrading our rel, and then a lot of things are down, or there's a patch to one of the platforms and some things go down, right? Right now, we're early in this whole process, and it's happening, and we're learning every single time, and we're growing more. We're getting better at doing those things than we were in the very beginning, right? It's hard to, I think that outages are resolved quicker, right? Now than they ever were, so you don't have big long outages. The other day Rocket Chat wouldn't come up, and my boss says, he sent me an email and he says, oh, I can't get to this website. And I said, try again now. And he's like, oh, well, what happened? And well, I don't know exactly what happened, but it's working now, right?
You look like a star.
Exactly. A lot of times things are self-healing now with the platforms that we're using. They'll heal themselves. And you don't necessarily, unless you're that expert that's looking into the inner nuts and bolts of how the platform works, I don't know exactly what PCUp or what OpenShift or Mesosphere did to make it come back up, but it's back now, right? And you have to trust a little bit in the technology and the folks that are the experts on it that are helping you, right? And yes, we did go down for a minute, but I don't know what caused it, and it's back up now. Now, that's where we could go back in. If it happens over and over, we can throw some agents out there, do a little root cause analysis, and look at what potentially is going on and find out more detail and fix the things if they're reoccurring over and over and over again. But there are things that are going to go wrong, and it's not easy. And change, and from an ops manager's point of view, being called on the carpet almost every single day because something is down, right? I really, truly understand your pain, right? Because they want to know, why is it down? When's it coming back up? What are you doing, right? And we are working with the DevOps teams now. The development teams are highly involved more now than ever with CI/CD, right? We may fix some things, but now we're involving the DevOps teams more when we're doing those deployments into ops so that they can see the things that are going on. We're working closer with them now than we ever have.
The chats are really helping.
Yep.
It is.
And that doesn't mean that all this is happening divorced of change management and change control, right? And so I think that, a good system, when it makes a change, even if it is automated, is self-documenting, right? So that's where
right.
We see integration with ServiceNow and a variety of other technologies, so that even if the platform is making a change on behalf of the application, like I'm spinning up a new container to deploy this, or I'm creating a new virtual machine, all of that is going back, and there's a traceability and accountability to all of that. And that's we shouldn't assume that we leave those things behind simply because we have automation. We need to be able to track that control. But I think what you're highlighting is that as an application developer, if I don't want my pager to go off when my application has an issue, maybe I need to write an automated test for my application in production, right? And maybe my platform needs to fire that off with some frequency to say, are you actually working? And if not, can I return you to a state that I know was working? And automating that as part of the development organization, integrating that into your operational platform is just as much a part of the role of that developer as writing their test harness to make sure there's 150 file formats.
So is the ops group now one of the customers of the software?
I think there's this concept of shared responsibility.
It is.
Right? And so we're in the same way that the developers were the customers of the operations organization in many ways, then yes, the operations team, which by the way, you may have operations folks who are now a little more savvy on development. Maybe they're writing some test capabilities in Python in concert with their colleagues on the development side.
Most of my ops team are now developers. Most of my ops team are developers.
I think
They're no longer just the ops guys.
I think some of it comes back to the ability to, if you're going to make a change and upgrade a library, whatever it happens to be, you do have the ability to do quality testing to assure that what you're providing customers. I mean, I recently had an issue I needed to patch, and with my system, we have to run smoke tests and all of our automated testing on, this version and 2 major versions back, right? So that I can assuredly give this patch to customers and know that it's going to work in their production, right, environments for an on-premise software. I think an interesting point, I'd be curious to see if there's any feedback around, because to me, this is an issue I've encountered in my own development is, most of us are leveraging open source software frameworks, right? It allows you to build applications very quickly. It's amazing. There are publications that provide us vulnerability, CVSS, bulletins, right, of an exploit and a known open source component, right? And we're talking about fairly simple technology, right? They can fingerprint a dependency and go grab the open source, databases and say, hey, look, Tomcat 8.01 has this patch. But what I haven't seen is anybody, these frameworks and libraries are often very large, right? And the vulnerability is actually contained in a very small part of the code. It's not actually being leveraged in the actual application that's deployed. So simply saying you need to upgrade from struts 1 to struts 2 is a huge architectural change. Angular 1 to Angular 2 is basically a rewrite of that entire framework. So I think as there are some challenges out there for vendors or whoever is going to solve this problem, the open source community, to tie usage, right, to these known vulnerabilities in open source components, because I do see that as a real challenge where you get a lot of information that says, well, upgrade all of these, and you say, well, that's not so easy because X, Y, and Z are going to break, and I need to fix this very quickly. And then you look at the code and you go, well, we're not actually using that vulnerable class, so you get this tug of war. And I think that's something that can be automated and solved, and it would be so as an idea for somebody out there.
Did you just let Equifax off the example?
No.
Could they have had any possible reason for not upgrading?
Possibly. Maybe their web application wouldn't accept new customers or something. But that's a personal thing I've seen as a consumer of those tools. And you don't have a better solution, so you use them, right? But it is not so easy to simply patch, right? These are complex applications to